everybody, and welcome to the Influencer Series, week number 2. This is a forum where every 2 weeks I interview someone who has the insight and the experience to help us all take our lives to the next level. And today I am elated to have Gary Magnant with us. Gary is a successful scientist and entrepreneur, and most notably, he is the co-founder and partner of the investment fund, the ICV Venture Engineering Fund 1, which is a first of its kind new class of venture fund. And he's also CEO of Tribiotica, which is a local biotech concern focused on cancer therapeutics. Welcome, Gary, to the Influencer Series. Thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure, Jim. I look forward to the chat.
Excellent. So, Gary, I know you personally, and there are few people that I know who recognize the value of service as much as you do. And you maintain what I call an open Rolodex policy in all of your professional relationships. So I was wondering if you could tell us about the value of building a network and how you created such a broad and active one.
I think that it started when I first started in business, right out of grad school more than 30 years ago. I started to build these relationships with some pretty amazing people over the course of time. I started in sales. I started my first company called Owl Scientific right out of grad school. And I was both selling and running the show and learning things the hard way. But it provided me the opportunity when I was out in the field talking with other scientists to learn what their needs were, and in particular to build relationships with some of the people who ultimately became famous. But at that point in time, they were in grad school, they were just kind of in the earlier stages of their career, and they needed research apparatus and tools that didn't exist to do things that hadn't been done before, right? And so I became one of those go-to people in Boston that would do custom types of things, or my company was. And so I just built personal relationships with folks who ultimately became pretty amazing in their fields, and then maintain those relationships over the course of time. I think the most important thing is just to stay in touch with folks and drop them a line every once in a while. And, you know, our planet seem to come into orbit periodically, you know, the way the world works and whatnot. So, and then I've tried to be positive most of the time so that I'm not burning bridges, that I really tried to build them. And then if there's ever a need for myself or someone else to cross that bridge to meet a contact or a connection, then the bridges are there. And yeah, so that's it. Stay positive and stay in touch.
Yeah. So when you meet somebody new, and you find that this individual that you're interested in what they're doing and where they've been and where they're going, what's your approach to kind of just starting that relationship with someone that you want to bring into your network?
That's a really good question. I don't think I really think about it so much. So I'm sort of indefatigably curious about them and about everything, and sort of what they know that I don't know, how they could, you know, guide or inform or teach me things. And so my starting point with almost everyone is to sort of have that kind of really a bond, a connection that is very genuine and says, you know, I want to know you. I want to know about you and whatnot. And as I go to build those relationships, I try to be pretty vulnerable myself in the course of the conversation, so that they feel comfortable. They get comfortable right away with just a chat. Right? Yeah. And I never make it like I'm not looking for money or, you know, anything like that. It's really I'm looking to learn, or I have something to share and I need their help or advice, or would value their input. That ultimately became the fundamental guiding principle of all the venture engineering work that we do. It's that kind of very human connection, and this seeking to have experienced people within their spheres of influence give me thoughts and input on a business concept or idea.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
want to
so
talk.
I just try to make a very personal connection.
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit about venture engineering in just a moment, but it's interesting. The point that you make here has to do with a way that we develop our own personal level of influence. I give this webinar on influence and persuasion, and influence is really, it's the foundation for all of our human interactions, the way we meet people, the way that we talk with people. And you said a couple important things there about listening and being vulnerable yourself. And there are experts. There's this one guy, Chris Voss, who wrote this book, Never Split the Difference, on persuasion and influence. And he calls it tactical empathy, where where you try to get the person to, they tell you their story, and you repeat the story back to them. And if they come back to you and they say to you, "That's right," then they get you, then you get them, and that's the first step, and that's exactly what you just illustrated. I mean, that's
I never thought of it that way. To me, it's sort of just a knack that combines sort of a general curiosity about that other person and whatnot, and I don't know, maybe I have some need to be liked or something, some psychological thing that's been going on ever since I was a child. But I really want people to be comfortable talking to me. One of the comments that I heard, that I actually used about a friend. Somebody asked me about this one friend, and I said, "Oh, your soul is safe with him." Right? I think that could be the highest praise that I could give someone, is to tell someone else that your soul is safe with them. Like, you can be vulnerable with them and they won't take advantage of you, though. So that's one of my guiding principles, is I want people to know that their soul is safe with me. Sometimes it takes a little time to kind of get there, but it's a genuine truth and a guiding principle of my interactions with folks. So
that is a golden nugget that I love, that comes out when I have these conversations with the influencers in my life. And I have to tell you, that's profound, and absolutely that's worth spending the 15 or 20 minutes to listen to this video. Absolutely. I've recently joined a men's group. Have you ever been a member of a men's group?
No, but I'm a member of a CEO group that just happens to have all men.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have a de facto kind of men's group, and we joke about it. We'd love to have other women in there and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's just how it evolved over time.
Well, it's fascinating when you can get a bunch of men together and they do drop that curtain of manliness to allow themselves to be vulnerable, and you get some really wonderful insights that you wouldn't expect. I've recently joined, and it's this invitation only men's group, and it was a colleague of mine who I was coaching. She's a Hollywood photographer. Her boyfriend started this group. It's called Metal, and it's LA based. And so, on a weekly basis, I'm on calls with all of these tech and entertainment power brokers. I mean, Elon Musk's brother Kimball is a member of this
Wow.
group. It's fascinating. And I get into chat rooms with these men like John McAfee of McAfee Software, and actually Chris Voss was there one week, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And regardless of how, what station these men are at, they open up, they're vulnerable, and and some pretty fascinating stuff flows. So so I really I understand that, and I think there's a lot of power behind it. So
just to that point, Jim. Yeah. The CEO groups that I'm in, including yours and this other one, I can't tell you how much they've added to my life.
Yeah.
And in terms of networking, that's been incredibly powerful, but both at a personal and professional level, once you've sort of earned the trust of your peers within a group like that,
Yeah.
they will open their networks and doors and do their level best to help you as well, just like they do for me and I do for them.
Mm.
So
Love it.
yeah, I'm a big believer in CEO groups and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and yeah, highly recommended for anybody who's in that position
Yeah.
of running a company. If you can get into one of those groups, it's great to be able to get behind closed doors and talk with a group of people where you don't have to worry about judgment.
Yeah, your secrets are safe with them, and their secrets are safe with you. And and you wrote I've been in this other group for probably, I don't know, 12, 14 years now, and you love them. They
Yeah,
become dear friends, like
yeah.
almost extended family. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
beautiful. I love it. Tell me a little bit more about venture engineering, and because if I understand venture engineering, it's really built around the concept of applying specific networks and contacts to be able to give the companies that are in your that are part of your group a leg up that's unique relative to other approaches that different funds.
Yeah. Yeah. So my history as an entrepreneur, like many entrepreneurs, is sort of up and down, right? Success, failure, success, failure. Um, and so I became a student of failure, right? I didn't have that many. And they were both, well, one wasn't really a failure. The company went public and we all made a little bit of money, but the other one, a huge amount of money went into it, more than $100 million of VC. And I recruited a lot of my old friends who were famous now, Nobel laureates and folks like that, and to start this company. And so we attracted a bunch of capital. And then, despite all of this incredible brain power and the money that went in behind it, the company ultimately still failed. And I just became a student of failure because it took a good chunk of me with it. When it happened, I was pretty crushed. And I realized that the models that drive traditional venture capital, um, how they do what they do, and the bets that they ultimately place on a startup are, the math works if you do enough of them and you get your unicorn, right?
Hmm.
But most of them actually fail. Most of them are in the red. Most of the VCs actually never make it into their carry, and they make their money on their fees and whatnot. So I realized that this is just not a model that works for a true entrepreneur, right?
Mm.
I'm not a financial manipulator or anything like that. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to build companies and whatnot. And my personal passion has always been at the emergence of new technologies that would be game changing in some way, meaning that they would transform a market, completely change the way that market was served, or they would disrupt it. You'd be bringing something much cheaper and more accessible to a wider range of people and stuff like that. So, so I started, after making a few mistakes in terms of how all of this evolved, I started to realize that whenever I set up a company, the truth of that company, the essential truth, is out there. Whatever opinions I or my team have, no matter how smart or sophisticated they are in that specific business, you have to go out and find all of the truths, right? And so what we start off by doing is, uh, and I should point out that if you don't go find the truth as you launch a business beforehand, it's going to find you,
Mm.
right? So and
Wow.
that's when you have to pivot, and that's when you have to change, and there's lots of capital inefficiencies that go along with all that stuff. So the first thing that we do in the venture engineering fund model is we go out and we've got this game-changing technology, and we we first identify every constituency, every group that will have a voice ultimately in just how successful this technology could be or this company could be. In the life science world that I serve, a lot of that will, it could be regulatory people, payers, researchers, doctors, nurses, You know, we generally end up somewhere between 17 and 27 or so constituencies that we need to talk to for any given life science company. And then we go out and we interview them. We interview at least 5 in each category as a general rule, so that we get the kind of vision of what the people, let's say it's a you know, some regulatory people, and we want to take a product into clinical development. They will guide us in terms of how that process should go, or what some of the barriers might be, because a lot of these things are on the cutting edge. The FDA isn't quite prepared to deal with, you know, this whole new therapeutic approach or whatever. So anyway, we talk with lots of people, and we're ultimately guided to where the right market entry point is for that product. And then the most important of all is, as you're having these heartfelt interviews, or these professional but personal interviews at the same time, and you basically say, okay, here's the big idea. What do you think? Will this change your world? How should this, how could this technology be improved for your applications? And do you know of other people whom we should talk to about this? As soon as people realize you're not asking for money, you're not asking for, you're not offering money, you're simply asking for help to ultimately help them. Remember, they have some kind of vested interest in whatever this is. So when they realize that you're asking for that connection, then they generally are very open about it, and most people will just start, you know, chatting away and telling you this, and oh, you got to talk with so and so about that, and before you know it, they've linked you to 2 or 3 other people. Over the course of that whole venture engineering process, where you're discovering the truth about the technology, you start to evolve what the plan will be for commercialization and the launch of the company and the product and whatnot. Then the most important thing that comes out of it is you also build relationships with people who truly have gravitas in the market that business will serve. So these are people who are generally, you know, former senior executives, board seat types of people, C-level, C-suite people, who are just recently retired, or maybe they're no longer a part of a big strategic acquirer, but they still have all the friends and connections and whatnot. When you present the technology to them, they usually get really excited about it, because they understand the value of that technology to the company that they worked at in the past. They know how transformative it would be to that business. So it's from them that you build the stakeholder team. You start to pull the really powerful people in to build the company. So, pardon me. So instead of building it, you know, starting with a team of really, you know, highly pedigreed people who may not be perfect fits for that particular market, we build them from the outside in, from the people who really are perfect fits for that particular thing. And their sheer credibility, their sheer presence in the industry allows us to lift the company up really quickly into the hands of a strategic acquirer, or into the hands of investors that want to take it farther and whatnot.
Great.
So it's a very, very efficient way of finding the truth, standing on the truth, and then building the team from the outside in, from the people who really can take it to the next level efficiently.
And plus, it's almost like, you know, when you think of building a network, like any other professional skill, it's, you know, it's a practice, and so you're continuing to build your network of individuals that you might be able to tap in for other reasons at some future point.
Oh yeah, that network, it expands. It's like a scintillation, right? It expands upon itself, and you know, we generally, I can't think of a time when I burnt a bridge. I probably have at some point in life, but as long as you're building bridges rather than burning them, then you can go walk across those bridges to talk with those folks again. And then, you know, if somebody, like many times people bring me technologies or companies that are not a fit for what we do, but almost always I know somebody who would be interested in this, that, or the other thing. Right. So I could say, you know, I think you should talk with so-and-so. Right. And, you know, I think in the past, I don't know, month or so, I've connected people who I thought, I think you should talk with so and so, and two of them have jobs already. Just
Brilliant.
yeah, it was pretty fun. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
You know, I am of the belief that there are few endeavors in life for the amount of effort that you put into it bring as much value, potential value, real value, as connecting one person with another. And you
Yeah,
never know where it might go or what might come of it. And it doesn't take a lot. It's just, if you wake up one morning and you feel like, I don't, what can I'm stuck in the mud. What can I do today to actually move the ball forward? Maybe not for me, but for somebody else. And that's just make a connection between one person and another. There's so much value in that. And yeah, it's
I've
so
got
cool.
my list of people that I have to make connections to. I just keep
Yeah.
every call that I have, or most calls, I have some homework, and a lot of times that homework is about connection.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing I just want to touch on. This is a story that you told me the last time we spoke, and part of building a network is really wanting to hear other people's stories and taking direct interest in them, as you had mentioned before. And so I was wondering if you could tell us about your recent plane ride. I think it was either to Colorado or from Colorado, and the young woman that you met on that
Oh,
trip.
yeah, no, it was a flight a few months ago, kind of before the whole COVID thing started to blow up on us. I happened to be on a flight sitting next to a gentleman who told me that his son was dating a young gal named Ellie, and she had graduated from, one of the local colleges. I think it was Bowdoin, and with a degree in biology, and she's sort of trying to find her way in life and trying to figure out what to do with this degree and whatnot. So I said, well, have her reach out to me. We'll see what happens and whatnot. So we connected, and she turned out to be a very sharp, very positive, you know, uh, high energy, joyful kind of young person. So it made it easy. She made it really easy for me to open some doors. So the first conversation we had was, okay, here's the different relative fields in the life sciences that you could take a biology degree into, not just benchtop science, but business and law and all these different kinds of segments. So we had a conversation that kind of peppered around that. And she's very much an outdoors person. She lives in Colorado, and I think she's a competitive skier and stuff like this, right? And so she wanted to be able to balance, her life in science and her life in the outdoors and whatnot. So she investigated several different areas. She got back to me and said, okay, um, I'm gonna, well, actually, no. We talked about it. We identified the different sort of constituencies, if you will. And I said, okay, I got this incredible advice from a former NFL football player who had was on a Super Bowl winning team. And Jim, I'm not a sports guy, so I'm very embarrassed that I'll have to go back to my emails. He deserves to be honored for the advice he gave me, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember his name right now. But
Well,
anyway,
it's not Tom Brady, is
no, he was.
it?
It was out in California and at a meeting, and I just ran into this enormous giant guy, and he had this huge ring, and we just struck up a conversation.
Sure.
And he was an angel. He was a wonderful person. But he said the best advice he had ever received in business was that if you want to start a business, and in his case it was real estate, he wanted to learn real estate, was to talk with 100 people, one a day for 100 days, right through the weekends. And on the other side of that, you will have built the networks. You will understand the nature of the business. You will be guided to the people who you want to be partners with and things like that. And it worked incredibly well for him. So Ellie and I told her that story, and Ellie said that she wanted to try it. So we started the 100-person project. And Ellie went out, and she started and I opened up a bunch of doors in different fields and stuff like that as a start. And she asked, just questions about what life was like as, you know, a bioinformaticist, or what was what was life like at the bench top as a virologist and stuff like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she would always ask people, and do you know anyone else that I could talk to just get their thoughts and insights and whatnot? And she said that almost every time people gave her one or two more names and opened up other doors. So very quickly, she was able to kind of test the waters of a bunch of different fields. She has since centered in on bioinformatics. So I made a few more connections for her in the bioinformatics space, and we'll see how it all goes.
That's a great story. And you know, one of the most valuable things you can do for another person is to make a connection between them and someone else. But one of the most valuable things you can do for yourself is to never end one of those conversations, particularly if it's a new person, without asking, "Hey, can you think of anybody else in your network that might be able to bring me some answers to some of my questions, or that you think I might want to meet?"
Yeah, if you have to listen to karma, right? So if you sense that things have gone well, and it's that they're going to be comfortable with that question, then yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You have to use a little bit of tact and a little bit of understanding with the person you have in the conversation.
Yeah, you know, I think another really important thing is to be joyful in the conversations. Really try to be positive.
Yeah.
I think it just puts everybody at ease. You know, if
Absolutely.
you're genuinely a positive person, then other folks are going to feel more comfortable quickly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There are. I think this is Daniel Pink's approach to sales or persuasion, and he has a framework. It's ABC: attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. So if you want to influence, or you want to sell someone, the first thing is attuning with someone, tactile empathy, acknowledging what their reality is. The second one is buoyancy, which is that joyful component. And the third one is clarity, asking them the clarifying questions that get really to the nub of what their issue is, what their problem is. But Gary, I want to thank you so much for this today. This was fantastic. Thank you for sharing your stories.
It was my pleasure, Jim.
Yeah,
it was fun.
This was a lot of fun. I had a great time. Well, folks, that's about it for this week. Next time, I believe I am going to be speaking with Deirdre Sartorelli, who is the director of the Angle Center for Entrepreneurship at Endicott College here on Cape Ann, actually in Beverly Farms, I think is technically where Endicott College is. And we are going to be talking about disruption, which is a huge part of what's going on in our lives right now. Gary, thank you so much. And
you're welcome,
Jim. Great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Give my best to Deirdre. She's an angel. She's one of the best of us. So, all right, sir. Thank you.
Again. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.